Surveys that can help identify product need and opportunities. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight to it. First of all, I'm sure the question on your mind is who's this guy? Like, why should I listen to her? Like, I don't know who this person is. Well, again, my name is Dami, and I'm a user researcher at PagerDuty. I've been designing consciously for about 3 years, and unconsciously for a little over 4 years. Um, I used to be a product designer, but I recently decided to focus on UX strategy last year, and so that's kind of what I've been doing since then, right? So that's just a little bit about me. If you want to check if I'm an actual person and if I'm not lying, you can check my LinkedIn. I promise you, I'm actually not lying. Sweet. So we actually have a lot of things to talk about today. Today's going to be pretty interesting. I'm a bit sleepy, so my energy is very low. So if I'm quiet for 2 minutes or a minute, just know that I've slept off. Just pity me. It's been a very long week. But yeah, so for our agenda, I'm going to be talking about UX research. So I kind of structured this in a way that people that have no idea what UX research is can really like understand things and can get the best out of this meeting. So we're going to start by talking about what UX research is, why it's important, what surveys are, why we use surveys, some things to know before you create surveys, how you can make a survey good, how to survey like a pro, and then I have a couple of case studies that we can look at together. And then right after that, we can just like go over some like final words concerning surveys, some things that you should keep in mind as you design surveys. And then we end the session. Hopefully, we can keep it to an hour. Like I'm gonna really try my best. So yeah, so what is user research or UX research, right? So Aaron Baumwick, who is IBM's chief design officer, defines UX research, or in this case, user research, as something that focuses on understanding user expectations, behaviors, needs, and motivations through methodical investigative approaches, right? So the goal of this entire thing is to just to get insights. And those insights, the insights that would be derived from the research are then used to ensure that all product decisions benefit the user, right? So some key things to focus on here: understanding user expectations, behaviors, needs, and motivations. These four things are really important as a UX designer and as a designer in general, right? You need to have these things in your mind at all times as you make a product decision, as you do whatever it is that you're doing. Like your user comes first. You need to make sure that at each point you understand what your users expect from the product, what they expect to be able to do with the product, what their current behaviors are, what their needs are, because identifying like understanding their needs is what's going to allow you to identify opportunities that can opportunities that your company or your product can actually just take a hold of and make profit from, right? Or do something with, right? So yeah, so that's what user research is. And so why is user research important? Why does it matter? So the first reason it matters is because you are not your user, right? So you don't know, the assumption is that you have no idea what your users want, what they need, what you don't know anything. So you're kind of coming to this with a very blank slate, right? Like your mind is just like a fertile ground. I don't know what I was going to say. I don't know why I said that. Your mind is like a fertile ground where like just open to a lot of opportunity, open to a lot of ideas and open to the possibilities that exist in that space, right? So UX research allows you to understand who your target users are. It allows you to understand the context, right? What's the context of the product? What's the context of the problem? What's the context of use, right? Context is very, very important, right? What their mental models are. So I personally think that user research and kind of user strategy, UX research and strategy, I kind of think that they're really focused on understanding the mental models of your user, right? They focus on understanding what mental models to teach your users, what mental models that they already have that you can leverage on, right? And what mental models to just throw away, right? So, but the two key things, like I think that UX research does is identify the existing mental models and help you figure out a way to build on those things, right? And identify mental models that could be taught to the users, right? Also, UX user research allows you to understand key concepts and terminologies in the space that you're working in. If you're working in a very technical space like I work in, you need to spend a lot of time really understanding the technicalities of what you're researching, or of the kind of products you're researching, and the kind of people that use your product, right? And user research allows you to do that, allows you to understand users' goals, pain points, usability needs, their first impressions on your product, their workflows, right? Like how they kind of perform tasks, like how they journey from one point to the other, right? And how the different channels by which they use to kind of achieve their goals in your platform. Also their overall experience, like how they journey from one part to the other on your site, and all those other really interesting things. Also, your user research also allows you to understand the accessibility needs of your users, and also allows you to figure out how to create a very productive and efficient solution for them, right? So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I'm sure you're like, yeah, cool stuff, Dooms. We're not going to talk about surveys. We're going to talk about it now, right? So let's talk about surveys. So what is a survey? A survey is simply a set of questions used to collect topic-specific information from a representative sample of your target audience, right? So a survey can either be qualitative or quantitative, right? So in qualitative surveys, you delve deeper into the topic to gain information about people's motivations, about their thinking, and about their attitudes. But in quantitative surveys, your goal is primarily to gather data, right? So you don't really care about like qualities. You just want to be able to put numbers to things, right? And use that, I don't know, to for statistics or whatever you want to use that for, right? I personally like to mix methods. So my surveys are usually a mix of qualitative and quantitative, but the emphasis is usually on qualitative because I personally believe that it's in the qualitative side of things that you get like those really valuable nuggets, right? Those really valuable like informations that could really help transform things and could help really inform product decision, right? So why do people like surveys so much? Because it's not expensive to conduct, right? You can legit just like go on Google Forms and just throw a bunch of questions up there and post it on Twitter and just like, I don't know, figure out a way to cajole people to fill out the survey. Some people are naturally motivated, some people are not, right? Um Surveys are also really easy and quick to execute, so it doesn't take time. Like you can have a survey up in like an hour if you know what you're doing, right? But I don't advise that you have a survey up that quick. There's a lot of things that go into it, and we're going to talk about that, right? Surveys are also super useful for gathering a lot of data, right? So you can get a lot of data from as many people as is possible, right? As opposed to interviews, with interviews or every other methodology, there's a limit to the amount of people that you can speak with. There's a limit to the amount of people that you can interact with. But because surveys are unmoderated, so they the researcher doesn't have to be there. Anyone can just fill out the survey at any time, right? And so it allows for like that flexibility and allows you to just like reach different types of people. And finally, people like surveys a lot because it passes off as user research. So people would just do one quick survey and be like, yeah, when I did user research, I'm just like, no, you did not do user research. You did a survey, right? A lot of people here are on this table, so you can catch yourself, right? It's just catch it real quick. So yeah, so when should I use a survey? You should use a survey when you're trying to figure out who your users are and what like their demographic information is. Surveys are particularly good for figuring out demographic information, right? You can use a survey when you want to figure out what your users want, when you want to understand what they give attention to, when you want to understand what's important to them, when you want to understand what their mental models are, when you want to understand what they think of the brand and of the product, and when you want to understand what their feelings are about the way things currently are, and when you also want to like identify maybe pain points that could lead to opportunities, right? Pain points that could really help you figure out, okay, what opportunities exist in that space, what opportunities that you can kind of tap into to create something like amazing, and that really solves user needs and that really helps them. So yeah, like, is there anything else that you need to know before creating surveys? Stay with me. Just a couple of things. So survey is not equal to user research. If there's nothing, if I mean, if you don't hear anything today, just hear this one thing, right? Survey is a survey, right? It's a methodology. It's one of the many research methodologies, but don't just go around and say, oh, I did survey, so I did user research, right? And I mean, I really understand how things are in emerging markets in that, and even in businesses that that don't have research buy-in, right? Because there's no time, there's no research, like there's very, very limited resources. So there's a limit to what you can do. But be very, very specific about the type of research that you're doing. I say, okay, I used a survey, like I did a survey. Like, don't just go around saying, I did user research. A lot of people that would say, oh, yeah, when I did user research, I found this. And it's like, okay, what user research did you do? And it's like a survey. And also, a survey is not a good fit for everything, right? I gave you some conditions before that needs to be met before you can use a survey, right? You can't just throw survey on every research problem and be like, yeah, I think a survey will help with this and just trade, right? No, you can't do that. Surveys are even, it's not even advisable for you to use the survey alone. Like, ideally, research standard, you should use a survey and another research methodology, right? So maybe surveys and interviews, or surveys and usability testing, or surveys and first impression test, or like, you need to figure out like something else, right? To use with like your surveys. I don't know, but yeah. So the next thing is that surveys are not foolproof. Honestly, in research, nothing is foolproof. But of all the research methodologies, surveys and some other unmotivated methods are the most susceptible to errors, right? Because you're not there with the user, like, so you don't know what they're doing, so they can just do whatever they want to do. And if they don't understand it, they'll leave it. That's the thing about surveys. So you have to make it as simple as possible. You need to make sure that you're asking the right questions. You need to make sure that everything is set, because if things are not set, people will just abandon it and there's nothing you can do about it, right? And finally, creating good surveys is not easy. I'm going to show survey design is, honestly, if you ask a researcher what's the most annoying part of your job, they'll tell you survey design. Survey design has to be the most annoying and complex part of user research ever. It doesn't even make any sense. It's supposed to be simple. Like, you see, and be like, this thing is not supposed to be this hard, but it is, right? It's just, I guess that's how life is. But I'll show you why. I'll show you why user researchers usually hate surveys and survey design. So in designing surveys, you need to ask two major questions, right? So survey design is really divided into two interrelated parts, right? So these two questions kind of represent each part of it, right? So you need to ask yourself, am I asking the right questions? And am I structuring my questions properly? So the focus of the format is on scoping and planning, right? So figuring things out, trying to make sure that you're asking the right, like, you're asking questions that are relevant to the study and all that. And the focus of the latter, which is the second question, is on best practices. So what are some of the things that I need to do to make sure that people understand my survey, to make sure that I'm getting the best out of all my surveys, right? So I'm going to tackle each part, right? But before I start, why should you even care, right? Why should you even care about this? You should care about this because the quality of your research is dependent on the quality of your questions. If you ask the wrong questions, you get the wrong results. If you get the wrong results, you build the wrong thing, right? Because your results inform product decision. And so if you if you if you build the wrong thing, then I don't know, man. I don't know. Only God can help you at that point. But yeah, so you want to make sure that you have top quality questions because you want top quality results, right? You don't want to run into very, very serious errors because if you use wrong research findings to inform product decisions, you will have issues. And people will begin to doubt the validity of your work, but doubt the validity of what you're doing. And that's the absolutely last thing you want because most companies have a very low design and research maturity. So they don't really value research already. So if you go and make one very costly mistake, then that's the that's like I beg, I don't want to do research again, right? So you need to be very, very careful about how you structure your research questions. That's why you need to really, really care about how you survey, like structure your research and also your survey questions, right? So am I asking the right question? This is the first part of survey design. What makes a question right? What makes a question right is one thing, right? It gives you the answer that you need, not the answer that you want, but the answer that you need, right? So with research, we have a lot of biases. So every human has his or like her own biases, right? And it's even worse with research because whether you choose to admit it or not, you already have an idea of what you want. You have an idea of how you where you think that the product should go, or where you think things should move. But most people just do research to just fulfill a righteousness, right? Like you have an idea of the type of response that you want, right? And honestly, that in itself can cause a lot of trouble. So for most of the research that I've personally done in my lifetime, the key findings were nothing close to what we thought we were going to find. Like absolutely nothing. Like every time I released a research report, it was like, more like where did this thing come from? Because this is not even what we were focused on, right? And that's the beauty of research, right? I personally like to see research as an adventure, right? So like don't go in saying, okay, don't go in with this, like, okay, I want to find this, I want to have that, right? Because the thing about research is or data gathered from research is if you torture the data enough, you get the answer that you want. Right? If you can bend and twist things, right, to fit your narrative. And that's the thing about biases, right? So you want to be really careful that you want to make sure that you're getting the answers that you need, not the ones that you want, right? So how can I ask the right questions? Very simple. Create a flipping plan. Just plan. Like I mean, I can see tears in my eyes. Like I can start crying tears here. But it's really that simple, right? People don't want to plan because they're like, oh, why should you create a research plan for an ordinary survey? Like, who has the time for that? Well, the thing is that there's no shortcuts, right? There's no other way. Like, if you want to make sure that you're writing the right thing, that you're doing the like you're asking the right questions, you want to make sure you want to plan. You have to sit down and plan things. You have to sit down and jot things down. When people hear plan, they think, oh, hard work, it's manual labor, serious toil. That, oh my god, I'm going to waste so much time. It's going to be very long documentation. But I mean, that's not it, right? A plan doesn't have to be that intense. A plan can just be a one pager, just one page, like just one page. That's it. And if you're really focused, you can create a plan in an hour, right? I created a plan in an hour before. I mean, it takes practice, but if you're really focused, like an hour, 2 hours, it's not too much, right? It's not too much time, to be honest, right? You spend more time pushing pixels. So like I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm here with the shade, though, you guys. I'm so here with the shade. But yeah, so all you need to do is really all you need to do with this plan. It doesn't have to be intense. You just need to make sure that you want to just identify the scope of of the study of the survey. You want to make sure that you're aligned on the goals of the survey. You want to make sure that you have your solid research questions, right? You be able to identify your research questions, right? You want to make sure that like everything is related, right? Everything is cascading. And I'll show you, like I have examples here that I'm going to show you, right? But those things are very, very important. And also a side note, research question is not survey question. Please don't get it twisted. There's a difference, and I'm going to show you the difference very soon. But yeah, so doing all these things ensure that you're aligned, and it kind of just stands as the north star for your survey. So you're looking at you have something that you're looking at as you're creating other things, right? So yeah, that's it, man. It's just an hour, please. Because one thing I've noticed is that people assume like they know it's like I know what I want to ask. I don't need to document it. I know it's my brain is sharp. I'm a very, very smart person. I know what I want, right? But the thing is just that you forget stuff, right? And writing things down gives you more clarity, right? So please, Write things down. Create plans. Please, I'm begging you. Please, if you need help creating a plan, reach out to me. I'm going to make myself available to help you. Please. I'm begging. Right. So, Dooms, give me one good reason why I should care. I'll give you one good reason why you should care. Because, like, wait, I restructured. I think I made a mistake. I think I made a mistake with my slides. Right. I think I moved things around. Sorry, I'm really sleep deprived. But yeah, as I said earlier on, see research as an adventure, right? So see research as an adventure with a known destination but an unknown path, right? So it's like, that's an example would be, so you're going to the grocery store, right? You want to visit a grocery store, right? So you already know where you're going, but you are not really certain on how you will get there, like on the routes that you will take to get there, right? Because you're not that certain, you're more open. Like you're not like, oh, I have to take this route to get to this place. You're more open to, if somebody comes and say, oh, are you going to this place? Oh, I know this shortcut. You're more open to take that shortcut because you're not really like, you don't really have a route that you're like, oh, I have to take this, I have to take this route, right? So that way, you're really able to see everything, able to see new things. That flexibility provides a lot. It provides a lot, man. It really helps. Like it really helps you identify opportunities. Because there are a lot of really interesting insights that I found that were originally not even part of the study. They were not part of, like, I don't know how people gave the answer to those questions. But they did, right? And it was super useful. Like it was super, super useful. So don't please check your biases. Don't be like so set in stone. Don't be like, oh, okay, like I have to get to this place using this route. I have to go this, like, be a bit flexible. You need to be very, no, be very flexible. Be very, very flexible, right? So this is for research in general, not only surveys. Like it applies to surveys, but also research. Okay, so I've talked a bit about how to, like, I forget the other part. I've talked about a bit about the first part. So the second part is, um am I structuring my questions properly, right? But before we answer this question, um I think it's really important to note something. I think it's important to note that the goal of any interaction with your users is to learn about them and their problems. That's it. Like that should be in your mind as you interact with users. So that informs every single thing you do, down to how you structure your research question, right? Like, how can I structure this question in a way that gives me the insights that I need to help them solve their problems? That should be that should be what's on your mind, like as you're structuring your research questions, as you're structuring your survey questions, right? So yeah, the reason why you should care about the structure of question is that you are not the person that is filling the survey, and you are not going to be with the person, right? When I started out in UX design, the first thing that my professor told me was he told me you are not your user, and he said it every single class. It's like finished the program. I'm just like, at the end of the day, like at the end of the program, like I was so amped. I was like you could tap me, wake me up from sleep, and I'll tell you, you are not your user. Like it really entered me that much, right? And so with surveys and research, it's the same thing. You're not the person filling out the survey. And you're not going to be there when the person is filling it. So with moderated methods, you can be there, like some usability tests and some interviews. Like if you ask the wrong questions during an interview, you can paraphrase, you can change things up on the job. But with surveys, like if you ask the wrong question, that's it. You can't go and say, hey, brother, sorry, this response that you gave me is not really what I was asking for. Can you? Nobody's going to answer you. Nobody's going to answer you, right? So you want to make sure that you clarify things that are unclear. You want to make sure that your question and your survey is like so simple. It's so simple that your users understand it when you're not there. They don't need to reach out to you to ask you for more context, right? Like, because again, I want to say this again, if your users don't understand your survey, if it doesn't make any sense to them, they're going to abandon it. They're going to abandon it and they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go and do other things, right? And there's nothing you can do about that. So you want to make sure that they don't abandon your survey, and you want to make sure that they're giving you the feedback that would be useful, they're giving you feedback that would be useful in determining product decisions, right? So yeah, here are some here are some best practices for structuring your survey questions, right? So the first, avoid leading questions, right? So leading questions are questions that prompt or encourages the user to give you the answer that you desire, right? I missed a word there. More, I should have slept though. As small as leading questions are questions that prompt or encourages the user to give you the answer that you desire. So instead of asking, why do you like our product? Ask, what do you think about our product? Right? Because asking, why do you like our product? You already assume that they like your product. So people will find a reason. They'll be like, most people will be like, okay, why do I like this product? And they'll give you a reason why they like the product. And I mean, that would affirm your bias, or that would, I don't know what that's going to do for you, but it's not going to show you what their pain points are. If you ask me, why do I like, why do I like yam? I'll tell you, I like yam because I like it, right? I think it's cool. But if you ask me, what do you think about yam? I'll be like, oh, well, I think that, it's just, I can tell you, I will tell you about, I feel like yam was not probably a good example. Yam was not a good example to use. But I mean, so okay, on a more serious note, if you're asking me what do I like about my water bottle, I'll tell you, oh yeah, I like that I can really open the flap. I like that it's easy to close. I like that I can just like hold this entire thing. But if you ask me, oh, what do I think about this water bottle? I'll tell you, like, it's pretty cool. But I think then maybe if it was bigger, like maybe like I would have loved for it to be bigger, and I would have loved for it to, I don't know, be able to keep my water cool for longer periods of time because I like cold water, right? And I'd have loved for it to be maybe to be able to compress it because I don't like carrying stuff around, but I always want to make sure that I have water around. So you see, by just changing from why to what, like why do you like our products, what do you think, like I'm already giving you so much valuable insights, right? So I personally, in my surveys, I like to include a lot of what do you think about this and what are your feelings. So what do you think about this water bottle, like what are your feelings around this water bottle questions, because like I don't assume that people like the products, right? So I just like me, I personally don't even I don't assume that people like our products, right? So but even for me, it's a bit complex to use. So I'm not really sure how I feel about the product yet. So I'm just joking though, please. Before you go, I give this to my manager. um, but yeah, so it's just flexible, right? And so like you're able to get very interesting responses. You're able to get like more out of your questions, right? The next is tell me a story. So people don't really do well with recollecting their actions, right? Because they struggle to remember things, right? I would know because I forget things a lot. If you ask me, oh, um, how do you read this book? I'll be like, "Ah, I open it and I read it. Like, what does you want from me? But if you ask me, oh, can you tell me about the last time you read this book? I'll be like, okay. Well, the last time I read this book, like I had to go and look for it for my on my shelf. I had to like I checked the I don't know the summary to see, oh, what is this book about, and then I got a pen because I saw a lot of interesting things. So I started like underlining some interesting things. I started like tweeting about like, so I'm really giving you more information, right? So you're really able to understand my workflow. You're really able to understand like how I really interact with it, right? It's the same as like how do you take a picture on your phone? It's ask me how to take a picture on your phone. It's like I open the camera app and I take picture. Like it's that simple. But you're telling me, oh, tell me about the last time you took a picture on your phone. I'm like, oh yeah, so it was my sister's birthday, and like the camera guy, like the photographer didn't show up. So I was like, okay, let me just use my phone. It's almost the same quality, right? So I did this, and then I went to the camera app, and so I'm giving you more context. I'm giving you more information, right? So please, like, ask people to like ask for stories. Don't ask for, oh, how do you, like, ask them for a story. Ask them for the last time they did something, like, oh, tell me about the last time you did this, or can you talk about the last time you had to do this, or like those questions. They give like the latter question gives you more feedback and more insights, right? The third is use open-ended questions. So excuse me, Open-ended questions begin with words like where, what, when, why, how. Avoid questions starting with did or was. An example: did you have a nice time at the party? Yes. Like, what am I like? Okay, like, well, okay. Oh, how was? Oh, Dami, how was the party? Oh, the party was so cool. There was this guy that came around and he was singing and it was so chill. And then after that, we had snacks. And then I'm sharing more with you, right? Because like you didn't ask me, like you didn't ask me. Oh, did you what? Like close-ended questions, just like okay, it's very easy to just like yes or no or this or that. For with yes with close-ended questions, we did with did and was questions. It's just very easy to say oh yes, no, I don't know. But with how was, it's more open. It's like a conversation, right? So try and structure your surveys like you're having a conversation with the person at the other end of things. It's like okay, like oh, how are you? Like how are you feeling about this? And how are you feeling about that? And okay, oh, can you talk about the last time that you did this? Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So that gives you more insights, right? They're able to kind of see the person in a way, they're able to see the person behind the survey, right? And that's what you want. Because if I feel like I'm having a conversation on the survey, I'm going to finish it, right? I'm going to finish it because even me, I'll be enjoying it, right? So the last thing is that your flow matters. I'm looking at time. I don't want to go over time. The flow matters, right? So the flow of your questions matters. Like, please don't just throw questions around. You need to structure your questions in a logical way, in a way that makes sense to people. You can't have number one, what's your name? Then number two, what do you think about our product? And then number three, how old are you? Like is everything all right? You can't just structure questions like that. It's not logical. Like you're throwing me off. Like I have to context switch. Like, okay, you want to know my name. Okay, now they want to know how I feel about the product. Okay, then I don't want to know how like it's a lot of it puts a lot of stress on the brain. Right. So structure things again like a conversation. The trick is a conversation. Think about a conversation. How like if I'm having a conversation with this other person, what kind of questions would I have ask? What kind of things would I say to them? Right, that kind of thing. It helps you really like ask right questions. Right, it's so quiet here. This is so cool. um but yeah, so those are some best practices off the bat. So how to survey like a pro. How do you survey like a pro? Define the goals. And you can define the goals when you create a plan. Please create plans, you guys. I'm begging you, just sit down and just create a plan. Like I'm like it saves you a lot of stress, saves you a lot of work, it saves you a lot of like mistakes, right? So you can define your scope, define the problem statement, like figure out what the overall goal of the survey is, define that and have that there, and that will stand as the north star for every other thing that you do. Like you go back to refer to that. So it's like at each point, like your survey is good when your survey is able to answer the questions that can be pulled out of your goals, right? If you can go to your goal at the end of the survey, at the end of like when people have filled out your survey and everything, if you can go back to your goals and say, okay, this is the answer to this, and okay, this is this and this is that, right? Then you know that you've created a very good survey, right? So please define all these things, right? The next thing is to define your target audience, right? And honestly, this one depends on the type of project that you're running. Sometimes you can have like super specific demographics, right? Some other times just have like a high level idea. Some other times just like random people, like can just be very random. It really depends, right? It really depends on the type of survey that you're running. So the next thing is to identify your research questions, right? What are research questions? Research questions are high level questions that are pulled from the goal, like the research problem. They're pulled from the research problem, and they're pulled from the research problem and the goals of the study, right? So your goals and your research and your problem informs the research questions. Ideally, there are about maybe at least three questions. I mean, not at least three, at least two, because I've had a study with two questions before. At least two questions, right? Um, I personally say the maximum is five. So people say 11. Me, I can't have 11 research questions. That's madness to me, right? So five, from two to five, it can be two to five high level, super high level questions. I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes an example of that, right? Then be specific about your unknowns. So what are some of the things you don't know? And it's really interesting. I see people approach research, like approach like surveys, and even generally I see them approach research as like, oh, okay, um like these are some things that I don't know and I want to find out. Like, but without structuring the things, right? Without defining those things, like, okay, today I want to know this, tomorrow I want to know this. Next, like you need to create some structure. You can't just be saying, okay, these are the things I need to know at each point, right? You need to have some certain things that, like, I don't know these things, that these things are very, very important to me. They're very important that I know them. And it can be a brain dump. Like, it can be like just you thinking, oh, okay. It can be something as basic as, oh, who's our user, right? What do they like, right? What's important to them? Like, what are some of their thoughts? Like, what are some of their feelings around, like, those kind of things? And those questions are the questions that actually inform your survey question, which takes me to step number 5, right? Once you have your research questions, once you have those questions, like those unknowns, once you've identified those unknowns, you can bring them together and use them to form your research questions or your survey questions, right? Um, and again, I'm going to show you that in a couple of minutes. We're very close to that. Um, so the next thing is to structure your survey in a logical way. I stated that earlier. Like, don't just be throwing questions anywhere, everywhere, right? Make sure that, okay, this is the question I have. I don't know. The first question is how old are you? Second question is, okay, what do you like doing? Like, those questions are like, it makes sense. But if you're asking me the first question, what's your name? Second question, what do you think about our product? Third question, how old are you? Like, I'm like, you're not focused. You're not focused. That's the problem, right? So structure things in a way that people would understand. I wouldn't put too much mental stress on the people that are answering your surveys, right? The next thing, and the thing that people overlook the most, pilot the survey. So maybe pick, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 people that fit the demographic, that fits your target audience, and have them run through the survey, right? Have them fill out the survey and see if it fits, like if the answers that they're giving you correlates with the answers they are looking to get. Now, I don't mean the answers that fit your bias, right? I'm saying the answers that answer the questions properly, right? So if I'm asking, oh, what type of books do you like? And I'm expecting to hear about genre of books. So maybe, like, I don't know, self-help, and I don't know, physics books, math books. And people are interpreting it as, oh, hardcover book, soft cover book, like online book, or what's the name of the ebooks. Like, then I know, okay, maybe I need to add an example, or I need to reword things, or I need to restructure things. Like, so once you're able to do that, like, because again, going back to the points that I made earlier on, you're not going to be there when the person is filling out the survey. So you want to make sure that at each point, like, like, they understand what you're asking them for, what you're asking of them. That's what I was going to say. I don't know why my brain just kind of, like, you want to make sure that at each point you understand what you're asking of them. You're making sure that at each point they are giving you the right answer, right? So piloting your survey is the easiest way to do it. The product that I work on, is for developers. So my developers of my company, when they see me on the engineering Slack channel, they know that I'm here with survey. Like, just come and disturb their lives, right? And I'll disturb their lives until I get enough feedback, right, before listening out to our customers, right? And because I do that, like, I rarely have issues. I don't think a customer has ever reached out to me to tell me, oh, I don't understand this question, right? Because, like, I've tested it out with the people in my company. I tested it out with similar people, right? And I make changes, right? If they give me some weird answer, like, this is not what I'm asking for, and I'll pull one of the engineers, like, okay, how, like, if I'm trying to get this response from you, how do you think that I can ask this question, right? And I get their input, and I use my knowledge of research and survey design to restructure the questions, and then I release it out to the public, right? So yeah, the last thing is launch publicly. So once you fix things, once you're sure that your research, like your survey is asking the right questions and giving you the right feedback, then you launch it publicly, right? Next thing, oh, it's time for examples. Let's look at the examples. So I'm going to yeah. It's so quiet here. I feel like I'm talking to myself. It's so cool. Okay. Um, yeah. So this is an unnamed app, right? The product is a platform that allows the business owners or administrators to provide entertainment to guests legally, right? So they don't want to be playing music that was probably taken online or music that I don't know was gotten illegally or entertainment that was gotten illegally. They want to make sure that people are getting paid for the entertainment that they use, right? So the entire goal of the product is to create an improved relationship between the customers and the businesses, especially when the customers are patronizing the business. So what's the problem, right? The problem here was that they wanted to figure out how to go about creating this product. So the audience are business owners and business administrators, right? So the research questions that we're able to get, I hope everybody can see this, by the way. I hope everyone can see this. Yes, you can. Amazing. The research questions, I've lost my train of thoughts. um, yeah, so the research questions from this, who are our users, right? And like, okay, not who are our users. Let's understand who the users are. I don't know why I'm reading this thing wrong. The first question is that you want to understand who the users are, right? So you want to understand what their pain points are, what they think, how they go about doing their business. Like those are the things that you want to understand, right? So who the users are is the first research question. You see that it's super high level. It's not going into detail and saying, oh, I want to understand what their pain points are. No, it's very, very high level. The next research question, who the business customers are. Like you want to understand who I think I didn't word this thing properly. You want to understand who the business customers are and how they interact with their business, right? So how the customers of the business interact with the business of the people that will be using the product, right? Then the third research question, how do they currently entertain their customers? What mediums do they use, right? And then the fourth research question, is there a need for an app that would automatically create a playlist for them based on their customers' preferences and behavior? That's just validating a need for like whatever solution that they wanted to build, right? So this stands as the unknowns, right? So from the research questions, we're able to break things down. Okay, so for the first research question, understand who the users are. What you want to do is you want to understand what the users do, where they work, what their environment is like, the nature of the business. Is it a digital business? Is it a physical? Is it a mix? Like what the touch points are. I mean, so is it a mix of physical and digital? Is it a relaxing environment? Is it fast paced? Right? You also want to understand what's important to them when they're achieving their work goals, right? The next thing is who the customers are and how they interact with their business. So you want to know who the customers of the users are and what they do, right? How they interact with the businesses, how they behave, right, when they interact with the businesses, what's most important to them when they're interacting with the businesses, right? For the third research question, um you want to know how do they currently entertain their customers and what mediums that they use. So for that, you do some specific questions under that is, do they entertain their customers at all? If yes, how? What factors influence the way they entertain their customers? Mood, time, weather, pop culture, season. Like how do customers feel about entertainment in these business places? What does entertainment do for the customers? What does the entertainment do for the users, right, and the businesses? And what's most important to the customers when they are buying, when they're being entertained? Or more. Sorry, I typed this thing in the night. um, the research question four, is there a need for an app that automatically creates a playlist for them based on their preferences and behavior? So is there even a need for this product? What problem are we solving for the users? What would be our value proposition? How do they currently entertain users? And how is this product different, right? What is the market like? What are the needs of the users? How can we achieve product market fit, right? And so you are able, from the four trying not to scroll too fast. From the high level research questions, you've been able to break things down. And so you have all these specific questions. So the thing about this thing, and it's something that you have to keep in mind always, is that Not all like surveys can't answer every question. For most studies, as I say, you have to mix surveys with something else because most of these questions can't be answered with a survey. Primarily because it just takes time. Like no user is going to fill a survey with I don't know, I think like 20, almost 20 questions. Like nobody has the time for that, right? The max that your survey question is supposed to be is like 12, right? So there's only so much that you can get from your surveys. That's the reason why you need interviews or you need another methodology, right? So that you can get more from that, so that you can get more feedback. This is just the starting point, right? So you can get more detailed feedback, right? Better quality feedback, right? So from that, we're able to pull out the survey questions, 12 questions. What is your age range, right? Where are you located? What kind of business do you work in? What's your job title? Which of these best describes your work environment? Can you please walk me through your day-to-day activities at work? Instead of asking, what do you do at work? I'm like, I mean, I work. Like I do stuff like I work. But if you're asking me, oh, can you walk me through your day-to-day activities at work? Now I'm thinking, okay, I come into the office and then I read two articles and then I grab a cup of coffee and so like I'm really I'm remembering like I'm able to kind of associate because like it's something that I do on your reg and it's kind of like asking for a story, right? So you're able to kind of get that detailed feedback. You're able to get that detailed feedback about their workflows and about how they go from one point to the other, right? So, do you currently provide any form of entertainment to your customers at the workplace? Yes or no? If yes, what kind of entertainment do you provide to your users? It's very, very, very important that you ask, like, why. Like, whenever you ask questions, like some close-ended questions, it's very important that you ask why questions right after that, right? Because it gives you feedback. Like it just gives you more context. You really understand why people do what they do, right? Um, the thing about this though is like you want to make sure that it's optional. But the thing about humans is that they would fill out like they would answer the questions. Like they will actually answer it, right? If you make it optional, they would actually answer it. That's what I've seen from the past. So what are some of the factors that you consider what are some of the factors that you consider while making a decision, right? On what form of entertainment to use part time, right? Or a better way to ask the question actually is can you talk about the last time you had to select entertainment for your customers? How did you go about making the choice? What were some of the things that influenced your decisions? What is most important to you in making the choice, right? With this question, with this particular question, you're going to get more like more context. You're going to get more data, rich data, as opposed to this. Like, what are some of the things you consider? I'll be like, yeah, I don't know the weather, how people are feeling, what happened yesterday, like the time of the day. But here I'm like, oh, the last time I had to do this, or I did this, and I was trying to figure this out, and then I did this, and then I did this, right? So you're able to really pull on like past experiences and get a story. And with stories, you get more context, right? And then how would you rank the ease of selecting entertainment for your users? Assuming you can create a platform that helps you select entertainment for your customers, what would you expect that you'd be able to do with the platform, right? So this question, in a way, is asking them what they expect, right? They're asking, trying to learn more about their expectations without asking them what they want, right? Because like if you're asking me, oh, what would I expect if I'm buying a book? What do I expect from the book? I'm like, I expect to be able to read from the book. I expect to be able to learn from it. I expect that like I'm going to be able to use it from like use it more than once. I expect that like so I'm giving you like some of the things that like I just generally as a human expect, right? Not oh, I want a book that flips over 3 times if you shake it. I want a book that like so that's why you don't ask them what they want. You ask them about how they currently behave. You ask them about how they currently do things. And you try and look for opportunities within that space, right, that you can capitalize on, right, in making product decisions, right? So what time is it? 3:51. I'm going to skip this one. Maybe I'll share with you guys. It was another one that because I asked a couple of people to send me some research problems that they had, and so this is going to take time to go through. Um, But I'll show you this survey. It's an example of a survey that was shared with me, and I'm not mocking the person that created the survey. I helped him, like I talked to him, and we figured out a way to make it better. Um, and so I kind of asked, like, is it okay if I share this with other people? Like, if I share it with other people, right, about like how not to create a survey, like some things to avoid when creating surveys, and he was okay with it. I think he's even on this call, right? So I'm not insulting anybody. He agreed to have this up here, right? So the research problem for this is they wanted to understand how Africans shop for clothes and what opportunities exist in that space. Looking at the questions, it's like I like, are you a fashion lover? Like, yes. But from the point of the UX researcher that's going to be using this survey to do something to like inform product decision, what would that do for you? Like, are you a fashion lover? How does it inform product decision? In my opinion, it doesn't inform, like it doesn't do anything for like, okay, like 87% of people are fashion lovers. Okay, and so what? What does that mean? Right? Like, what does that mean? Like, it doesn't really mean much to me. Like, it doesn't really help inform product decision, in my opinion, right? What categories of clothes, what categories of wear suit your style? Like, I mean, I guess it's good information to know, but like, how does this help understand things? Okay, so if more people choose corporate, how does that inform product decision? Do you focus on, like, it doesn't help you understand how Africans shop. It helps you understand, this survey helps you understand what they shop for, but not how they shop, right? So these are things that you have to be very, very careful about. Because if you had created a plan, if the person had created a plan, they probably wouldn't have run into this error, right? Because now I'm like, okay, where do you get your wares from? Like, I get from the boutique. What does that do for you? Like, what does, I mean, I guess this question allows, like, it helps out. Like, it can inform product decision to some extent, I guess. Most people choose online stores or something. I don't know, right? But do you have a preferred clothing line? Yes. If yes, stay the clothing line. What does that do for you? Like, are you going to focus? Like, it doesn't allow you to understand how, how, like it's like, okay, if I say, okay, I love Kai Collective, okay, how does that allow you understand how Africans shop? Like, you know what they shop for, but you're not still sure how they shop. You don't know, you're not really sure how they come to a decision about what to buy, right? About how they make a choice about which brands to buy. Like, you don't really have that with this, right? Do you pay special attention to your footwear? It's like, yes, okay. What does that do for you? Like, not much. Like, it helps you understand again what they shop for or what they care about, not how they shop, right? So that's just kind of an example of like what happens when you don't create a plan for your surveys, right? Um so yeah, just to kind of wrap things up a bit, well, I can't believe I made it to the end of this. I'm so proud of myself. Come on. Yeah, so in conclusion, keep it light and breezy. Right? Keep it light and breezy, right? Um, you don't want to overload people with questions, right? You don't want, because if it's more than 12 questions, nobody's going, like, people will start, but they'll stop halfway and you won't have complete responses, right? So you want to make sure that things are like they're not too cramped up, they're not too many questions, and it's really easy to understand and digest, right? The second thing, the simpler the better, right? So don't overcomplicate things, right? I personally like to write things like I'm writing to a layman, right? I don't like to use jargons at all or big words. I don't even know how to spell. I don't even know English. Like, I can't even use big words, right? So I just try to keep things very simple and just kind of keep things frosty, right? So yeah, so the third thing is limit your closed questions, right? So limit the amount of multiple choice questions that you have, because they're more, I mean, except your goal is to do a quantitative survey, right? I mean, quantitative surveys are easier to analyze, but it doesn't really give you that much, those insights, those beautiful nuggets that could really help you turn things around, right? Um, so as I earlier stated, what I like to do when I ask a closed question is to ask why after. So just give people the option of deciding whether or not to give me like the reason why they do things. Because if you don't understand why they do things, then like half feedback is can sometimes be as good as getting zero feedback, right? Because you know what they do, but you don't know why they do it. And the why is where you get like those very juicy insights, right? The first thing, don't make any question compulsory, right? A trick that I learned to get higher number of responses in surveys is to not make any question compulsory. Just make every question optional. Like don't even put the asterisk thing, right? What I noticed, and I did a very very interesting experiment on this. What I noticed is that people feel more liberated and they feel more empowered, right? And they usually end up finishing the entire survey. They end up filling it out to the end, right? So try it out, right? If it works for you, let me know. Because I like testing things out, right? But don't make people feel like they have to do something. Don't People like to feel like they feel cool when they think they have a choice. Keyword think, right? So allow them like choose, right? So pilot your survey, right? I stated that earlier. Get lab rats. My own lab rats are developers of my company. I love them a lot, right? They know that when they see me on that engineering Slack channel, it's trouble, right? Um, so I've learned like from piloting tests that like I've learned from piloting tests that like you hardly get it right the first time, right? So make sure you're checking things, make sure you're updating your questions, make sure that you're making things more like better for people that are going to be filling it out. You want to make sure that the user experience of filling out your survey is good, right? So the fifth thing or sixth thing is to put your most important questions first, because not most people won't make it to the end of the survey. Like even if it's 10 questions, people will just do like 2 or 3 questions and still X. Or make sure that you account, like make sure that you use those data, right? But you also want to make sure that more people are finishing your survey than are dropping off, right? So make sure you ask the most important questions first, right? The next thing is avoid double negative questions. It's just confusing. Like it's pure madness, to be honest. It's like asking somebody, "Oh, do you think that people that love ice cream are not uncommon?" Like, huh? Like you could have just said, "Do you think people that love ice cream are common?" And that would have like, but they're telling me not uncommon. I'm like trying to cancel out. It's really stressful on the brain, right? No double negative questions. Like avoid it like a plague. And then the last thing is, do you have any questions? So give people the room to share their thoughts, to share things that were not necessarily covered in the survey, right? Give them freedom to share what's on their mind with you. In my surveys, I would have people say, "Oh, your product is amazing. I love it so much," and it makes me feel happy. And when I share that with the dev team, it makes them feel happy too, right? If I did not have that section that, "Oh, do you have any other questions?" they most likely would have given me that feedback because I didn't ask for it and there was no place to kind of put it, right? So allow people, like give them a space to like be free and to share their thoughts with you. It doesn't even have to be related to the survey they are writing, right? But just give them a room to just tell you anything, right? It makes it friendlier, right? So with that, we've come to the end of this session. If you have any questions, I don't know if we're going to have time to ask questions. I think it's 4 o'clock on the dot. Man, doing just a bad guy. Um, but yeah, I don't know if we'll have any opportunity to ask questions. But if you have any questions, you can just check Twitter. You can DM me on Twitter. And yeah, I'm a nice person. I'm a nice biscuit. Oh, can I zoom in a bit? Sorry, I didn't see that. But yeah, um, Darian, are you still there?
Yeah, like I thought you wanted to say something else.
No, I'm done.
But
I'm even shocked I made to the end.
thank you so much to me for this session. We've learned a lot. I'm pretty sure everybody has learned a lot. I've learned a lot. And like I can't wait to put all of this in practice. So thank you so much for everything that you shared. We still have time for questions, and you actually have a number of questions in the comment section. So I'll be reading them out for you. Let me find the first one. Also, the link to the Asher feedback form has been posted. So please help us fill that so we can know how, like, what you felt about this session and how we can do better for the subsequent ones. Also, you would find the slides to Dumi's, like, you will find her slides like at the end of the feedback form. So yeah, yeah. Okay, let me get to the first question. Uh, okay. Someone asked, how do you create a balance between ensuring users don't tire out from answering a survey and getting them to answer open-ended questions? I am asking this because there's a myth that survey questions should have more MCQs than questions that require long text. Yeah.
Right. So there it is so there's a trick, right? For every open-ended question, you have a closed question. So I like to shuffle things. So I can put like two closed questions and then two open-ended questions after. And that's why I like pagination, right? When you page things, people usually forget what they did the last page. They usually don't remember. So in the last page, if you had maybe two open-ended questions and one closed-ended question, if I have two closed-ended closed questions in the second page, in the third page I can have three open-ended questions or two open-ended questions and one closed-ended question. Like just kind of mix things up, switch things up in a way that um when people, and it's something that you need to test for when you're talking to people. So you kind of just switch things up in a way that okay, it's not really tricking, it's just being wise, right? You switch things up in a way that people don't feel like they're answering too many questions, and also giving them like asking why, right? Asking why after. So what I've noticed is that for most of the questions where I ask why, most of the closed questions where I asked why, a lot of people actually tell me why, right? They would actually tell you why. For some reason, it just doesn't make any sense. Like I normally would think I would expect them to just skip it because me, I would skip it. But sometimes they actually stay and ask and answer the question, right? So just try and mix things up in a way that doesn't feel too overwhelming, right? Make sure that your closed questions are like super close, like they're like super tight closed questions. And even with your closed question, I like to have order. Like I think that's something I missed out in the slides. Um, Having like okay, yes, no, I don't know, order, and having them like being able to put in whatever response it was like that wasn't included, right? So that way it's kind of closed, but it's also kind of open in that the people that don't resonate with the options that you give will be able to give like answers that best answers the question in their opinion, right? I hope that answers that question.
Okay, the next question says, how do you ensure that users don't just drop one-liners as answers to your survey questions?
By asking them stories, to be honest. So I mean, maybe because I work in a product or with a product where people are kind of motivated. So when people hate your product, they would give you feedback. Like if they say I've had somebody type a to one question, it was like a I think 200-word response to one question, to one open-ended question, right? And he filled out the rest of the survey because it was just a very strong pain point to him, and he just like, man, I need to get this off my chest, and he just like went full on, right? Um, so the truth is that there's only so much you can do. So you like I can't really assure you that okay, this is a way that you can avoid people from giving you one liners. But one thing I do know is that asking them for stories, people enjoy typing stories out as opposed to typing like direct answers to question. If you ask me, oh, like what did you do yesterday? I'm like, yeah, I did work and I did school and I read a bit and I slept. But if you ask me, oh, what are your feelings about how yesterday went? Right. I'm like, oh my God, see, I was so stressed yesterday. It was so ridiculous. It was so this was so that. And I'm giving you more feedback, I'm giving you more context, right? Because it feels like a conversation, right? So I think it all ties back to being able to make your surveys feel like a conversation, feel like you're having a conversation with the person, right? And by like trying to pull stories from them, trying to get them to give you stories, right? I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to confuse you, but not convince you. What's the next question, please?
Okay. What is the role of confirming or annulling biases, product guides biases during research?
The role. I don't really understand.
Mm, Aluko, if you could like rephrase your question, then we'll get back to that. Another question. Conflict arises with user needs during research. Three users can want three different things that are definitely against each other. How do you balance this?
So the first problem is in the way you phrase the question. Want, right? Um. So first of all, you want to be sure that you're not getting user wants, you're getting what they actually need. So yeah, trying to pinpoint user needs, not wants. The second thing is that you're like so you want to make sure that you're getting the majority inputs, right? That's why I think this they would say that oh run at least five interviews or five if you run like five interviews or if five people fill out your survey, you would see a pattern, right? You would really see a pattern. So don't so I mean there's no formula to balance it. It's just really looking for the patterns, um looking for the patterns, really looking for um I'm getting distracted, sorry. It's really looking for the patterns, really looking for a way to a common denominator, right? Looking for a common denominator that kind of just pulls everything together, right? You have outliers, right? If you do more, if you're not finding patterns, then you do more. Do more till you find a pattern. But honestly, I've I've done like I had a study where I just did five interviews and I found patterns, right? So you find patterns, right? So I hope that answers that question. If it doesn't, please message me and I will try to help out.
Okay. Um, Next question says, is this about a survey or an interview? How do I make a survey and ask people to walk me through their day-to-day activity? I mean, the constraints of time and attention.
I mean, you're thinking about it too much, right? Like maybe not walk me through. Okay, if you want to paraphrase it, like, oh, can you maybe talk about the last time you came into the office? What did you do? It's still the same question. You just want them to take you through things, and they will take you through things, right? The questions of time or attention is just all in your head. That's what I've noticed, right? It's mostly all in your head. People will answer. Some people will not answer, but some people will answer, right? Like some of my survey questions also double as interview questions. Most of my survey questions double as interview questions too. I just add more, like I just have more follow-up questions to the surveys, right? So you can ask people to walk you through. Just like you don't ask them more than once. If you're asking like five times or two, even twice in the same survey, then you will run into issues with attention. If it's just once, people will fill it out, right? Just don't overdo it, right? So yeah, that's the answer to that question.
Okay. Um, in a situation where you have to ask a lot of questions, how do you make the survey feeling experience not too boring or overbearing for the users? Can one utilize pictures or just make them give short or fulfilled answers?
You can definitely utilize pictures. People respond more to visual. So you can definitely throw in some pictures here and there if you can. People will respond more to it. Um, how to make the survey feeling experience not so boring? Make it seem like a conversation. I play a lot in my surveys, right? Make you feel like a conversation, make you feel like you're talking to somebody, right? When people feel like it's a conversation, they are more willing to respond. And if you make the survey not too long, if it's like 10 questions or 8 questions or something, like it's going to be really hard for you to get bored, right? Filling out a survey that is framed like a conversation and just has 8 questions. of which maybe three or four of them are closed-ended questions, right? So there are only like four questions that you have to fill out to the end. Like you actually have to type stuff in, right? So that's just it, honestly. Utilizing pictures helps. Um, Short or pre-filled answers. I'm not really a fan of that, and that's just because that introduces bias, right? Your pre-filled answers will most likely fit your bias as the researcher or as the person that drafted the survey. You don't want that. That's the last thing you want, right? Introducing bias to your users. There's one thing to have your own bias for yourself. It's another thing to actually introduce it to other people, right? You don't want that. So you want to make sure that at each point, you are keeping your bias in check. So I would not recommend short or pre-filled answers. Like if you're having short or pre-filled answers, then just make it a multiple choice question. Let's know it's a multiple choice question, right? So yeah.
Okay, next up is asking your users what they would like to see in a product a good question? If no, why?
It depends on how you ask it, right? If you're asking me, you're telling me, oh, okay, I have a food ordering platform, a food ordering product. Okay. And you were trying to figure out what people would like to see in that product. Like, so the product that you're focused on is the food ordering product, right? You want to figure out what people would like to see in the product. If you're asking, oh, okay, for, okay, let's use Jumia Eats as an example. For Jumia Eats, um, what would you like to see in our product? Like, I can start creating really crazy things that don't even fit my needs. Like if I can be like, oh yeah, I love a quick way to order yam. I would love to be able to just blink and have the restaurant appear. Like you can't ask me what they want. Like if you're asking, you have to take the response with a grain of salt because people would put in really bogus things. But if you give them context, so it's like okay, assuming you are trying to order food, right? On the app, what would you expect to see there? Like, so I have context. I'm like, okay, the task I'm trying to achieve is ordering food. Okay, so I'm trying to order food. I would love to see the menu. I would love to be able to add things last minute. I'd love to be able to remove things last minute, right? I have more context. You're not just asking, oh, what would you like to see in the entire product? You're asking, okay, given this specific context, what are some of the things that you would expect to see, not like to see, but just expect, right? To expect to have. Or what are some things that you would expect to, like, you would expect to be able to do with it, right? Like is like, I like a lot of things, right? But I don't need all the things I like, right? So you have to match the expectations with the needs too, right? With the pain points, right? So yeah, that's on that.
Okay, someone says, can you explain the difference between user behavior and user motivation?
So motivation is the trigger, right? So user behavior, okay. So I open Twitter every day, or I open Twitter at 1 p.m. every day. That's my behavior, right? As a user. My motivation is I'm in a meeting. I'm usually in a work meeting at 1 p.m. and I don't really care about the meeting, right? So I open Twitter for entertainment. That's my motivation, right? So understanding why people do the things they do gives you more context, right? When designing, maybe not in this Twitter context, not in this Twitter space, right? Or it kind of does, right? So it's like I want to be entertained, right? I want to be distracted. So as you're building your project, thinking, okay, when users come into our products, when they do this, they expect to be entertained, they expect to be distracted, they expect a not so flashy entertainment platform. Like so, because you understand what motivates their actions or what motivates their behaviors, you have more context, right, in figuring out how best to serve their needs, right? So again, motivation, behavior. I open Twitter at 1 p.m. every day. Motivation. I'm in a meeting every day at 1 p.m. that I don't really care about, and I want some entertainment. I want some light-hearted entertainment. That's why I open Twitter at 1 p.m. every day. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. How much feedback do you think is enough for a single survey? If you got less than seven people fill out your surveys, is that enough or too much? Also, if the stories from the user survey have
Come on.
huge differences, how do you reconcile them so that you know how to solve the problem?
Okay. Um, how much feedback do you think is enough for a civil survey? You can never have too much feedback. Too much feedback is a myth. It's impossible. It's impossible for real. You can never have too much feedback, right? The more the better, right? The more the better. Um, seven, it depends. For a survey, seven is pretty low. For a survey, you want to be aiming for maybe the 20, so the maybe 15, 20. If you have 15 or 20, yeah, okay. That's not bad. That's enough for you to really identify patterns because you need to understand that most people will not finish filling out the survey, right? So the completion rate for most surveys is like 30% or something, maybe 30, 20%, right? So if 20% of seven people finish your survey, like that means you basically have, I can't really do the math right now, but maybe you have two people that finished filling out the survey. No, that's not right math. Maybe one and the something, one and a half person that finished filling out the survey. And that's not enough for you, right? That's not enough for you to make me form decision. That's like just talking to one person and being like, okay, this person is our user, like is our central, like no, you can't do that, right? So the more the better. But for surveys, you want to aim for the 20s, right? Once you have maybe 20 responses, that's good enough for you to first of all have enough like people complete the survey, like enough completed responses, and that's enough for you to start identifying patterns, right? So yeah. The other half of the question. Wait, what's the other half of the question? If the stories from your
Um,
survey, okay, I think I just found it. If the stories from your survey have huge differences, how do you reconcile them, right? So hey, that reconciling part is a long stop. Maybe we'll have another session for it. So I do something called affinity mapping. Normally, if you check the back of my room, you see a lot of sticky notes. I actually have like a wall of sticky notes. I don't have that today because I just finished a research project and I just studied the wall down. But um, you just kind of pinpoint some interesting things, right? You see, I think you guys are really fixated on the fact that, oh, what happens if I don't find a pattern? You will always find a pattern. You will almost always find a pattern. Like you almost always find something like that relates from like one person's story to another story. If you're asking the same question, people are not that different. People's experiences they differ, but it doesn't differ by that significant an amount where you're not able to correlate the responses, right? So what I do is I would go through the responses and I would write some really interesting things on a sticky note and just straight up my wall, right? And then once I'm done with it, I just look around for patterns, like look around for some interesting things. For maybe I can, in a way, create an empathy map. I haven't said the word empathy map in so long, so I'm trying to like, is that the right thing? Yes, you can create an empathy map, right? Try to map out okay what people are feeling, people are thinking, people are doing, and just have that there. Right, that's a good starting point, and from there you're able to find out some really interesting things, right? But honestly, you would almost always find patterns, right? You would almost always find patterns. It's hardly like I've done a couple of research studies in my life. There's hardly ever huge disparity. If there's huge differences, you do more research. You do more research until you find a pattern, right? And that honestly doesn't take too long for you to find a pattern with research. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
okay. So Aluko has like confirmed what it is, or rather clarified what it is that he was asking before. But before I like read that out, I just want you to know that they are slandering Yam in the chat section.
You guys, I'll just log off. Like I'm just gonna disappear from here.
Okay, so Aluko says that my question is basically about how to confirm biases. For example, if I see a There's probably a number of things that are considered general knowledge about some products. Do you set out to confirm if those things are true?
It really depends. I generally like to test everything because that's the kind of person I am. So if you're telling me, oh, um, this product is used majorly by teenage girls when they're with their friends, I'm going to structure my questions in a way that figures out if it's true, right? General knowledge is a bias. That's the summary. Most more often than not, general knowledge is a bias. And I say that because knowledge is not constant. Knowledge evolves, right? What is true today might not be true tomorrow. So you want to make sure that at each point you're not making decisions based off of redundant knowledge or redundant information, right? So I generally set out to confirm things. Like when people are saying, yeah, like I know that people, I'm sure most of our users, and you can't show me any data, you can't show me quantitative data, you can't show me quality. I'm not even going to listen to. I'm like, yeah, yeah, cool, 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 and I'll figure it out. I'll go and find out for myself. I'll go and do some research and be like, okay, is this true? And if it's true, then you proceed. If it's not true, then I want to give you a report that slanders the entire idea or the entire knowledge stuff, right? So please, at each point, check your knowledge. Like, don't just assume that, okay, because this was true yesterday, it's true today. Continue to test your knowledge at each point. Continue because people evolve, people change. Their needs change, their needs evolve. You can't be making research decisions or product decisions based off of past knowledge because it was true yesterday. It doesn't mean it's true today. I hope that makes some sense. I hope that answers your question, Aluko.
Okay. How can you establish trust in your survey? For example, I once came across a survey and I wasn't so comfortable filling it because I felt the questions were kind of personal and I couldn't see the reason why they were being asked.
I mean, if you're still on the call, can you tell me whether or not they asked for your personal information? So did they ask for your email or for your name or for anything? Because that usually happens when they do that, when they ask for personal information. There's some types of research like that, where research is sensitive stuff, even generally. I generally don't ask for people's personal information. Like if I'm researching something that is super sensitive that could, I don't know, could okay, she didn't respond. Okay, it's fine. If I'm researching something that's super sensitive that could potentially, I don't know, make somebody feel uncomfortable. Honestly, if it's something super sensitive, like super sensitive, maybe we're talking about like, I don't know, rape or sexual abuse or something in that line, you don't conduct surveys for it. Like there's a limit to what you can ask on a survey because people are not comfortable really giving you responses, right? And again, if you make it seem like a conversation, if you assure them at each point, like, okay, I don't really care for your personal information. I just really want to get your story, because I want to use your story to help other people. Or I like to add like a lot of interesting words in my survey, like okay, thank you. Like I try to make it seem like I'm actually talking to them, right? Because if you're writing a sensitive survey, people if people will not want to give you information like that can be traced to them. So you first of all, you never ask for their first name or last name or any name. Never ask for their email. You can ask, oh, are you comfortable giving us your email? But never force them to give you their email or personal information, right? And ask questions in a way that shows that okay, the reason why we want this question the reason why we want answers to this question is because it's going to help. It's because it's going to help inform product decision somewhere or help another person. When people hear that okay, this is what this information is for, this is the purpose of it. When it's usually related to another human being, another human being can benefit from it, they're usually more open to giving you the response that you need, right? So they're usually open to giving you the response that you need, right? So you need to make sure that you're being very reassuring at each point, right? If you need to maybe break things, like structure things, like paginate your survey. Like the first page probably have 3 questions. Maybe you have 3 pages, three questions per page. If after the first set of questions, you're like, thank you so much for giving us your response this far. This response is going to be useful in doing this and this and this. We really appreciate this. Like, thank you. I know this must be a bit hard for you. Thank you so much. And just kind of reassuring them as they go along through the survey, right? But if people are uncomfortable filling out your survey, don't take offense in it. People are just like, people are very sensitive, right? So you just kind of need to respect that, right? And you have to figure out other ways to gather your data, right? If you're researching sensitive topics. I feel like I went on a tangent there, but I hope I answered the question. I feel like I kind of did. So yeah.
Okay, so the last question said, where does screening questions come into play?
Yes. I personally don't really like to. Okay, it depends. It depends on where I'm getting the participants from because we use like some recruiters to get participants. So I usually would have to write screening questions. But whenever I'm sending out a general survey, I don't really like to screen people. Like I have an idea of the target audience, right? So I can say, as I said earlier, sometimes target audience is super detailed. Like my target audience, whenever I'm sending out stories, my target audience usually has like, at least 5 or 6 criteria that they need to meet, right? Before we can consider their information, before we can consider their response valid for the study, right? Um, but generally, what I find is that when people that are outside my target market fill out the survey, or my target audience fill out the survey, they usually have some pretty interesting insights, right? So I like to gather that data too, right? But ideally, if you're talking about the ideal case, screeners come in when you want to make sure that the people that are filling the survey are people that are qualified to fill the survey. Screeners, the reason why I didn't talk about screeners is because I can do an entire 30 minutes talk on constructing screeners. It's pure madness, right? Because people would, especially if people get incentivized if they fill out the survey, they will always figure out a way to bypass screening questions and the screeners, right? So you have to figure. So screeners are super useful if you need like a very specific target audience. So it's like if I'm posting a survey, like for as I said, I work for a company that services developers. So if I'm posting a survey out to the public, right, I would want a screener, like because anyone can just pick up the survey and try and fill it with redundant data, right? But if I screen them to see, okay, are they engineers? How long have they been working as engineers? Do they do this? Do they do that? Right? I'm sure that okay, the results that I'm getting is top quality from the right people. But the disadvantage of having those very solid screeners, except for cases whereby you're outsourcing your recruitment, so where maybe I'm not like a third party is helping you get people. If a third party is helping you get people to do your research, you want to make sure at each point that you're like they are what do you want to make sure at each point? You want to make sure that the people that are filling out the survey are the right people because they are going to get compensated. And if somebody fills out the survey and gets compensated and isn't the target audience, you're losing money, right? So that's kind of where I think screeners are super useful. But for surveys, I would ask questions so I would ask those screening questions, but I would not, and so by myself I would filter out the data. Like I'll filter out, okay, this person meets all 4 criteria personally when I'm doing the analysis. But I don't like to ask screeners I don't like to ask screeners from like in the beginning, right? It's like, okay, fill this screen because so you ask me to fill screener, then you ask me to fill out because it's usually 2 separate things. So you ask me to fill out screener, then you ask me to fill out the survey. Like I'm already by the time I'm done with the screener, I'm tired. I'm not filling out no survey, right? People are not that motivated, right? Because it can be a lot. So you can ask your screening questions in your survey and do the filtering yourself, right? And what I've noticed again is that the insights that you would get from people that are not even within your market are super valuable insights that could be really, really instrumental in identifying product decision. Close the door. in identifying product decision, right? So I hope that answers that question.
Okay. So I think that those are all the questions that we have.
Yay, we're done.
If anyone has any more questions, you can like message her on Twitter. She's put her Twitter handle up there. So yeah. And she also said that if you need help with your surveys, that she would be willing to help you out. So she's nice like that. You can just DM her and she would help you out. So yeah, thank you once again for this session, Jimmy. It has been really, really educative. Um, I can't, like I said before, I actually can't wait to put any of this in practice, and I can't wait to disturb you when I need help. So yeah, um, they said you shouldn't leave them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we said, this session has been recorded, so you can follow Asha on YouTube, so that when it is, or rather subscribe to the Asha channel on YouTube. So when it's uploaded, you can get that alert. Follow Asha on Twitter and Instagram to stay updated. If you haven't filled the feedback form, you can fill that and you'll find the slides to her session at the end of the form. Thank you once again, Jimmy. Thank you so much for this. Thing.